Unseeing Empire is a book that examines what it means for South Asian immigrants to be represented. And it's a book that's more largely about how Asian immigrants in the United States try to look for themselves in visual images in public culture. How do racialized minorities in the United States see themselves? In what forms? In what kinds of images? What kinds of histories do those images have? In Unseeing Empire, I look at specifically at fine art photography that's created by South Asian American women artists, which are displayed in a variety of exhibition contexts, from large museums to small nonprofit galleries in cities that range from New Delhi and New York to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and Toronto. And across the book, what I'm really engaged with is the lived experiences of representation in daily life. I am really concerned with the ways in which Asian Americans desire to see themselves in the public sphere, and how so often, even when we see images of ourselves that we think represent us, those images don't seem like it's enough. That is, one of the arguments Unseeing Empire makes is that photographic images and maybe visual culture more generally fails to represent us in the ways that we want to see. And so this is really a book about the lived experience of wanting to see yourself represented, the artworks that you think might represent who you are, and the histories behind the kinds of representations that you see. The desire to see yourself in the public culture around you is a real and strong feeling, and it's a feeling that I take really seriously, right? Part of this book comes out of my own experience of being an immigrant into the United States and wondering where do I see images of myself? I came to the United States first as an international student to college in the 1990s. And at that time, there were really not that many representations of South Asians in the public sphere. Actually, I think the only representation of a South Asian American that I know was in The Simpsons. There was Apu, who ran a Quickie Mart in The Simpsons. And as we all know now, that was a really racist caricature of South Asians in the United States. So when the public sphere represents you in a way that you can't see yourself, then what you will crave is more, better, or more authentic forms of representation. We're now 30 years past the time that I was in college, and my Netflix feed certainly is like flooded with Asian American representation, really vibrant forms of music and television shows that center on the experiences of AAPI peoples, including South Asian Americans. At the same time that we see this apex of Asian American representation, we are also fully aware that AAPI peoples are violently discriminated against. And we see that especially today in the aftermath of the shootings in Atlanta and more recently in Indiana, where both Korean Americans and Sikh Americans were the targets of racist violence, race-based hate crimes. One of the most poignant things for me in writing this book is coming to terms with the fact that no matter how much we might see ourselves represented in visual culture, it's never enough for the wider public to recognize us as full human beings, right? So it's not just that we can't see ourselves, it's that we might not be able to see ourselves because the larger culture around us doesn't seem to recognize us as lived peoples. We are in a moment where, on the one hand, we are inching forward closely, slowly towards justice for Black people in this country, and yet the horizon for full visibility and for full equality seems a way off. I think Kamala Harris's election is an important first step in that process, but I don't think that her presence and her election as vice president in and of itself can create the sorts of structural changes that so many Black, Indigenous, and people of color in this country still need to see. I want to end by saying that I don't think representation is a failed project, right? I think one of the really powerful things for racialized immigrants who look at themselves in the public sphere is that you can read these images in ways that are meaningful to you. You can craft your own narratives of identification or disidentification with these images. And that too is a source of power, right? That too is a mode of figuring out how you are going to define yourself and your place here in the United States.